The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible.
Tensions and an AI battle brews. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Wednesday, October 22, 2025. I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, Jamaica renews its call to end the U.S. embargo on Cuba, flagging banking and trade fallout for local businesses. On the regional front, a port fee standoff in Trinidad puts global ammonia and methanol exports on the line. And over on the global stage, Reddit sues Perplexity in a major AI data scrapping case that sources say could set a new legal precedent. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-9235-111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a major weather alert that has immediate business implications. Jamaica is on a heightened state of alert this evening as Tropical Storm Melissa edges closer to the island, with forecasters warning the system is expected to intensify into a hurricane by the weekend. The forecast has already triggered a wave of preparedness measures across the business community, with critical sectors moving to safeguard operations. The Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, says it is better prepared than last year to manage widespread power outages, citing new partnerships and expanded restoration capacity. Speaking earlier today during a press briefing, Principal Director of the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, Evan Thompson, says the storm will track westward and pass the south of the country, reaching hurricane strength by this Saturday.
The system will continue to strengthen because it is moving so fast. The strengthening is even more likely to take place with it having that period of time. However, there are a few factors that are preventing fast development of the system. It is, however, expected to become a hurricane, and this is likely to occur sometime by Friday as we go into the weekend.
The latest updates indicate that the storm's growing strength and wide wind field are likely to bring heavy rainfall and strong winds starting late Thursday.
We should be getting rainfall from the system at that time. We continue to have the country under a tropical storm watch. That is what is there now. It's not a warning, but a watch. And that means that tropical storm conditions are possible within 48 hours. So as the system continues to move closer to us, we do expect that gradually we will start to see the increase in rainfall occurring on Thursday. Late on Thursday, there is the possibility of sections of the country, primarily the area closest to the center of the system, starting to be impacted by some tropical storm conditions. That is what is expected at this time.
That was Principal Director of the Meteorological Service of Jamaica, Evan Thompson. Jamaica's parliament has renewed its call for the United States to end its economic, commercial, and financial embargo on Cuba. Lawmakers say the decades-old policy is hurting banking, trade, and travel links that also affect Jamaican businesses. The House of Representatives passed the annual motion on Tuesday. Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Orlando Tarilong, argued that the embargo violates international law and blocks access to finance, trade, and essential goods.
Whereas this Honourable House has on the past 16 occasions approved a motion in support of Cuba's resolution submitted in the United Nations General Assembly entitled Necessity of Ending the Economic, Commercial and Financial Embargo imposed by the United States of America against Cuba. And whereas the 63-year-old policy of economic blockade remains in place, despite the fact that 187 member states of the United Nations, including Jamaica, representing the vast majority of the international community, voted last year in favor of the resolution. And whereas there are no formal and normal banking relations between Cuba and the United States, with implications for relations with the international banking system, and whereas there are no and whereas the restrictions on Cuba's international financial transactions, including those with multilateral organizations for cooperation with the island, have intensified with the implementation of the blockade policy. And whereas, despite the re-establishment of diplomatic relations in 2015, tourism from the United States to Cuba effectively remains illegal, with limited flights to only the capital city, Havana, and hotels remain off-limits under Cuban-United States relations restrictions on patronizing companies linked to Cuba's military or security services.
He warns that restrictions on Cuban financial transactions are spilling over into the Caribbean banking system.
The United States government tightened the blockade against Cuba with amendments to the Cuban Assets Control Regulations to impose increased restrictions on travel, the processing of remittances, and hotel accommodation properties in 2019 and 2020. be it resolved that this Honourable House express itself on the morality, legality, and desirability of this decades-old blockade against Cuba and call for renewed dialogue between the United States of America and Cuba and for the lifting of the United States embargo against Cuba.
That was State Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Orlando Terrelong. Jamaica's creative advantage could become its biggest economic weapon in the global AI race. That's the view of Vice Chairman of Ogilvy UK, Rory Sutherland, who delivered the keynote at the Intellibus second AI hackathon held at the AC Marriott Hotel on the weekend. Sutherland argued that as AI tools become widely available worldwide, creativity and problem framing will become the key differentiators that drive investment and job creation. He pointed to Jamaica's cultural assets as a major strategic strength to attract high-value investment. That was Vice Chairman of Ogilvy UK, Rory Sutherland. In financial news, cinema operator the Palace Amusement Company 1921 Limited has swung to a net loss of $146.9 million for the year ended June 30, 2025, down from a profit of $60.3 million in 2024. Revenues fell to $1.32 billion, while operating costs remained above $1.2 billion, wiping out most of its earnings. Finance costs also remained high at $42.9 million. Despite the setback, Palace ended the year with a stronger cash balance of $157 million, helped by loan inflows and asset sales. But long-term debt climbed to $510 million, and stockholders' equity fell to $905 million. The results highlight mounting pressure on traditional cinemas as audiences shift to streaming platforms and operating costs remain high. We go now to updates from the Bank of Jamaica on how the currency markets traded today. In Wednesday's currency trading session, the US dollar is selling for $161.29, the Canadian for $114.25, the pound sterling for $214.92, while the going rate for the euro is $189.80. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 111 stocks, of which 50 advanced, 37 declined, and 24
And it's time for Market Education feature, brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education feature, we're defining the term sale. A sale is a transaction where goods, services, or assets are exchanged for money or other forms of payment. In financial markets, it often involves an agreement on the price and delivery of a security between a buyer and a seller. For a sale to be valid, both parties must agree on the terms and the seller must have the legal right to transfer ownership. If no payment is made, the exchange is generally considered a gift or donation.
The Market Education feature was brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
Is brought to you by Diamond Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Your garden coming along well.
Thanks, man. You know, it's a long time I've been working at it.
I can see that. I saw your mail by the gate, so I'll pick it up for you. But tell me something, why are you still receiving dividend checks by mail?
What do you mean about that?
You need to give JCSD a mandate.
You know, me hear about the mandate them. I'm going over there right now.
A mandate means giving instructions to the Jamaica Central Securities Depository Limited, JCSD, relating to the handling of your dividend or interest payment. There are 3 types of mandates. The first is a bank mandate. The second is a hold mandate. Lastly, we have what we call a third-party mandate, with which the investor may wish to send their dividend or interest to someone other than the parties on their account or institution of their choice.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. A high-stakes standoff over port charges in Trinidad and Tobago is rattling the global petrochemical trade, with producers warning of major export disruptions that could ripple through international fertilizer and energy markets. Global giant Nutrien Limited has confirmed it will temporarily shut down operations at its Point Lisas plant after the state-owned National Energy Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, NEC, moved to restrict its port access over unpaid fees. The action takes effect on October 23, forcing a controlled suspension of one of the region's most significant ammonia and methanol producers. At the heart of the standoff is a proposed 200% increase in port fees, retroactive to 2020, that NEC is demanding from exporters. If companies do not pay, they risk losing access to critical shipping infrastructure, threatening both production and exports. The government has confirmed discussions are underway to de-escalate the dispute, but industry sources warn further shutdowns could follow if no agreement is reached. CARICOM is seeking to sharpen its global trade strategy and used the opening of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September to advance that agenda. Amid global conflicts and rising geopolitical fragmentation, CARICOM positioned itself as an active economic player on the world stage. Speaking in a recent interview following the Assembly, Assistant Secretary General Elizabeth Solomon said the bloc leveraged summit diplomacy to deepen trade and connectivity with Africa and Latin America.
It was a very important meeting, and I think a very important opportunity to emphasize the ability for us to collaborate on connectivity, on trade, on people-to-people contacts, culture, and that will be very powerful. I think that South-South cooperation and making it happen was really a real high point, I think, for 2025 for CARICOM.
Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM, Elizabeth Solomon. Credit unions in the Bahamas are on the cusp of their biggest regulatory shakeup in years as the central bank moves to bring them under stricter bank-style rules. The proposed legislative package, unveiled by the Central Bank of the Bahamas on Tuesday, would give the regulator sharper tools to supervise, resolve, and protect depositors in the event of stress while creating more flexible channels for delivering payment services.
As regards credit unions, which are all members of the deposit insurance system, as well as members of the credit bureau, what the central bank is essentially proposing is reforms that would put more emphasis on strengthened governance mechanisms, placing increased emphasis on risk management framework within credit unions, and more oversight, particularly of the recruitment and appointment process for persons who are at the helm of these institutions, either at the board level or senior management. And these sort of reforms are similar to the mechanisms which are already in place for banks. And so while these reforms are being put forward, it is still recognizing that there are some characteristics that are unique to these financial cooperatives that still have to be preserved.
That was Governor for the Central Bank of the Bahamas, John Roll. In other news, Bermuda Housing Corporation has broken ground on a $775,000 renovation at its historic Middletown site. The Brown House project will modernize 4 residential units in the first phase, transforming aging buildings into energy-efficient, code-compliant homes designed for smaller households. Deputy Premier and Housing Minister Zane Da Silva says construction is slated for completion in January of next year.
We are proud to be partnering with Vision Construction and Moongate Consulting on this work. Construction began September 11th this year with a budget of $775,000, and completion is expected in January 2026. The work being done is not just a coat of paint, and the progress already visible on site is remarkable.
That was Bermuda's Deputy Premier and Housing Minister Zane Da Silva. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 22 securities, of which 0 advanced, 14 declined, and 8 traded firm. The 4 leading losers are JMMB Group, National Flour Mills, National Enterprises, and Guardian Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index declined by 4.60 points to close at 1,409.56. The Composite Index declined by 4.11 points to close at 970.12. The cross-listed index declined by 0.51 points to close at 69.93. The SME index remained at 99.17. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is in international news. Reddit has launched a high-stakes lawsuit against Perplexity, accusing the AI search startup of unlawfully scrapping Reddit content to train its AI models. Filed in a New York federal court, the complaint alleges Perplexity and 3 other firms circumvented protections to extract Reddit data at scale. Reddit says citations to its content spiked 40-fold after a cease and desist letter was sent last year. The platform has licensed its data to Google and OpenAI, but says Perplexity has no such agreement. Reddit is seeking damages and court order to block further use of its data. Perplexity denies the claims and vows to fight in court. And while AI faces mounting legal pressure, investors are also watching key earnings that could shape tech valuations. Tesla Incorporated is set to post its third-quarter earnings later today, powered by a late surge of U.S. buyers taking advantage of a $7,500 federal EV tax credit. But analysts say the spotlight is on how Tesla balances demand growth with shrinking profit margins. To lure buyers, Tesla rolled out cheaper standard trims of the Tesla Model 3 and Tesla Model Y, $5,000 to $5,500 cheaper than premium versions. Analysts expect Q3 revenue to reach US $26.24 billion, up 4.2% year-on-year, but gross margin is projected to fall to 15.6%, down from 17% last year. CEO Elon Musk is also expected to update investors on the company's robo-taxi rollout, a key pillar of its US $1.4 trillion market valuation. Tesla shares are up nearly 10% year to date. And we move from auto earnings to foreign exchange markets, where softer inflation data in the UK rattled the pound today. The British pound weakened on Wednesday after UK inflation held steady at 3.8% in September, underperforming expectations of both economists and the Bank of England. Sterling fell by as much as 0.5% against the US dollar before settling 0.13% lower at US $1.03. Markets now price a 75% chance of a BOE rate cut before year end, up from 46% earlier. Meanwhile, the US dollar edged slightly lower against the Japanese yen, but the yen remains down 2.5% this month, its biggest monthly decline since July. Investors are watching stimulus plans from the new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, and the Bank of Japan policy meeting on October 30. And finally, a leadership shakeup is taking place in Brazil's retail sector. GPA has announced the resignation of CEO Marcelo Pimentel just weeks after a shareholder-driven board overhaul. Chief Financial Officer Rafael Rusowski has been appointed interim CEO while retaining his other roles. The change follows a power move by the Coelho Diniz family, which raised its stakes to 24.6% and installed Andre Coelho Diniz as chairman. Pimentel, who had led the company since 2022, spearheaded a restructuring focused on the Paio de Acusar supermarket brand and online expansion. His exit signals a new era for one of Brazil's largest food retailers. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the
Okay, I just sent the money. I'll WhatsApp you the tracking number.
Thanks, Daddy. I can't wait to buy that PS5.
Listen to me. Your birthday money is not just for spending. Remember what I told your mom? Remember to open the bank account immediately after collecting the money. Your mom has her ID, TRN, proof of address, proof of income, and your school ID.
I'm not an adult yet, so Mommy will have to open the account with me.
Yes. Anyways, I'm headed back to work, so call me later. I love you guys.
This financial literacy tip is brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, promoting financial inclusion. For more information, visit our BOJ Real Talk playlist on our YouTube channel.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Jamaica renews call to end U.S. embargo on Cuba, flags banking and trade fallout for local business. Regionally, Trinidad port fee standoff puts global ammonia and methanol exports at risk. And internationally, Reddit sues Perplexity in major AI data scrapping case. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Hi, I'm Haley Grant. You're watching